in this one, I'll go with Giselle works as a carpenter and as a blacksmith. She earns $20 per hour as a carpenter and $25 per hour as a blacksmith. Last week, Giselle worked both jobs for a total of 30 hours and earned a total of $690. So how long did Giselle work as a carpenter last week, and how long did she work as a blacksmith? So let's use the answers to figure out what we should define as variables. So Giselle worked as a carpenter for blank hours. So we can say that C is the number of hours as a carpenter. And we have as a blacksmith for blank hours last week. So B could be the number of hours as a blacksmith. So we've defined our variables. Now we just need to figure out what's going on with the information. And there's a lot in this. So usually we're going to use these totals. So I'm going to write that down. So the total hours is 30. And the total money, I'll just use the dollar sign, is 690. Now, C and B are just the number of hours for each of these professions. And we know in total that there's going to be 30 hours of work. So we can just say for this one that the number of hours as a carpenter plus the number of hours as a blacksmith is equal to 30. And we have one equation. And like I said, for most of these, one equation is usually not that bad to find. But sometimes the second one can be much more challenging, and sometimes both of them are very hard to get. So let's use the idea for the total money. And we know as a carpenter that it's $20 per hour, and as a blacksmith that it's $25 per hour. Now, the total, we can say as a carpenter, well, it's $20 per hour, and C is the number of hours worked. So the total amount of money made would just be 20 times C, because let's say if they worked 5 hours as a carpenter at $20 an hour, that would be 5 times 20, which is 100. So this is the expression for the total amount of money made as a carpenter. And for a blacksmith, we can say the total money made as a blacksmith, well, that's 25 times by the number of hours, but that's B hours, since B is the number of hours as the blacksmith. So the total money, let me rewrite that using a different color, but this total money is going to be equal to the total money as a carpenter plus the total money as a blacksmith. And we found expressions for both of those. So we can set up our equation now. It's this 690, and the total as a carpenter, that was that 20 times C, since it's $20 an hour, and C is the number of hours, plus the total as a blacksmith, $25 an hour, times by the number of hours as a blacksmith. So we've got our two equations, and we can solve these. Now notice this one, they all end in 0 or 5, so let's divide everything by 5. You have 4C here plus 5B, just to make our numbers smaller. You should always check this. Now 5 goes into 65 13 times, and we'd have a remainder of 4. 5 goes into 40 8 times. So this would be 138. So we got our second equation. And let's use the first one. We'll solve this, let's say for B. So maybe B is 30 minus C. And then anywhere in this one, we'll replace B with this expression, 30 minus C. So when we combine these, we get, let me change colors again. We've got 138 is 4C plus 5 times B, but B is now this, the 30 minus C. Now we have an equation where we just need to solve for C. So let's make some room. So I will distribute here. We've got 4C plus 150 minus 5C. So if we subtract 150 on each side and then combine like terms, this becomes minus 12 equals minus C. So C would be 12 hours. So it looks like they spent 12 hours as a carpenter. And we know the total hours is 30. So if you plug in 12 here and subtract it, the number of hours as a blacksmith would be 18. So both of those add up to 30. But we want to make sense of it. with the other information. So let's first put it up here at, we have 12 as a blacksmith, or excuse me, as a carpenter, and 18 as that blacksmith, but let's make sure that the money makes sense. So we'll say the total as the carpenter, and we're talking about total money, so maybe I should have, the dollar signs for all of those. But the total money, well, there are 12 hours times $20 an hour. And so 20 times 10 is 200. 2 times 20 is 40, so that'd be $240. And the total money as a blacksmith, well, that would be 18 hours times $25 an hour. And 25 times 10 would be 250. 25 times 8 would be 200, so that would be $450. So if we add these together, we should get the total of $690. So 450 plus 240, it does equal $690. So since it did, we can feel very good that these answers are correct.